One Championship is back for its first big numbered card of the year, and that is what we are going to be talking about on today's episode of the One Report. 170 goes down this Friday at the Impact Arena in Bangkok. It is a fantastic card, I believe, from top to bottom. 12 fights, including 3 title fights at the top of the bill. Some incredible striking matchups on this card and some other matchups that are of interest. And we will get into all of that and more on this very episode. I am probably going to keep this one a little bit shorter than most, even though this card is fantastic. Just a busy old week, lots of stuff to do. So I know that we've had some fight announcements and things like that peppered throughout the last week or so since the last time that we were on here. But, you know, it's been a busy run of events actually for One Championship in January. We of course had Fight of the Night 27 a couple of weeks ago. We recapped that on the last episode of the One Report, so you can check that out if you happen to miss that. And yeah, preview of 170 this week. Next Monday, we will hopefully be back to recap all of the action from 170. That is always a struggle to say, so please. It's messed me up already. Please do come and join me for that. Make sure you drop the channel a subscribe, drop this video a like, all of that good stuff. Let me know in the comments down below. Fight predictions. Which fight on this card are you most looking forward to? And let's dive right into it by pulling up the bout order here via One Championship's Instagram. As you can see, 12 fights, including a couple of prelims for the first time in quite some time, I feel. Not that, you know, they're specifically listed as prelims, but, you know, 2 very fun fights that I think One Championship fans are certainly going to tune in. You know, I mean, they were going to tune in anyway. This is a big card, but 2 fights that I think are really fun matchups that should kick off the card in a really, really fun way. So let's dive into it. I guess we could keep it on here for now, and maybe we'll pull up the actual One Championship website in order to go through these matchups a little bit more individually, because the bout order is actually different at the moment on One Championship's website. I believe it's only the one fight. No, there are a couple of I'm just comparing the two. It's only the Noiri fight. It is bout number 2 on One Championship's website, whereas it is bout number 3 on here. It swapped places on the One Championship website with the Suryanyak versus Tanzin matchup. Apologies for the pronunciation. This, if you've been on this channel before, then you know that this is just something that you have to deal with. I apologize. I try and do my best to say it in the way that I think it is supposed to be said. But, you know, apologies if I do get any of these wrong. If I do, let me know in the comments. I am not opposed to feedback. That would be great, actually. So please do that, and I will of course watch this card and then hopefully learn for the next time. But you know, that's easier said than done sometimes when you come around to actually doing these things. In the first bout of the night, you've got a really, really fun flyweight Muay Thai matchup here between Freddie Haggerty and Jordan Estupinan. Of course, 2 siblings of fighters that I'm sure One fans will be accustomed to watching at this point. Obviously, Freddie Haggerty, the younger brother of the One Bantamweight kickboxing world champion, Jonathan Haggerty, and Jordan Estupinan, the brother of Johan Estupinan, who we'll be talking about in just a little bit, because he is also on this card in another really fun flyweight Muay Thai contest. I don't really know anything about Jordan Estupinan in terms of his style. If he's anything like his brother, then you kind of know exactly what to expect, because his brother, as we will get into, is a wild striker who throws everything with the intention of knocking out his opponent. A very, very different style to Freddie Haggerty, which if you've seen, you know, Freddie's been on a great win streak in One Championship. I think, is it 4 wins in a row now? It could be 3. But he's looked very, very impressive. I've really enjoyed watching him as well. Yeah, a little bit more of a reserved style. And I think that that's really interesting. I mean, it's hard to kind of gauge this fight because, I haven't watched Jordan compete before. I don't know how he stacks up compared to his brother. So I'm kind of making assumptions based on his brother, which isn't necessarily fair to do. you wouldn't make judgments on Freddie Haggerty based on the achievements of his brother, because his brother has been around for a lot longer and in one championship for a lot longer. Whereas, the Estupiñán brothers, Johan only debuted last year, so I'm assuming that they're a little bit closer in terms of their styles and where they're at in their careers. I don't know that for a fact, like I said, pure assumption here, but yeah, fun fight. I think this is a big test for Freddie, even though, like I said, don't know a lot about Jordan. But like I said, if he's anything like his brother, then this is going to be a dangerous test for Freddie. But I think from what we've seen from Freddie so far in one championship, he certainly has the composure to deal with a wild opponent like Jordan. So really interesting fight here, and I'm excited to see which way this one goes. Also, just surprised to see this fight get put together, considering one, pretty high on the Estupiñán brothers, it seems. Obviously, bringing in Jordan after the success of Johan. Freddie, of course, is going to be a guy that was always going to be, set up for big things in one championship if he's able to deliver inside the ring, and he certainly has been able to thus far. Bout number 2 is another really fun Muay Thai matchup. This will be a catch weight between Surya Yanlek and Tant Zin. Yeah, there's this fight, and we'll get to Sexan later on. Both of these fights are like, if someone who has not seen one championship before is coming to you and they want to see the best of the best in one championship, these aren't probably the fights that you're going to show them. However, if you want to be like, Muay Thai is absolutely awesome and you'll love it, here's two guys just completely throwing caution to the wind and trying to take each other out with everything that they throw. And that is what I expect in this fight. It should be a lot of fun. Of course, Tanzin had that really impactful fight last time out against Takeru in September, where he dropped Takeru in the first round, and everyone had their heads in their hands, not because you don't want to see Tanzin do well, but it was like, oh my god, we might be about to lose Takeru versus Rodtang, until Takeru was able to turn it around, which I don't think is really that's a fight that everyone was expecting Takeru to come through, so it's not a huge knock against Tanzin, but he, put on a show, big following from Myanmar as well, so I'm sure he'll bring a lot of the Burmese fans over, and that should make for a really, really entertaining bout to kick off the card. Him taking on Thailand's Surya Yanlek, who has fought a lot of times in one championship, has got some good knockout wins under his belt. Hasn't necessarily had the kind of breakthrough of someone that is going to go on to really make an impact on the main roster. But I remember when this card was kind of being put together initially, Chatri speaking about showcasing a few of these Friday fights guys on a bigger stage at the Impact Arena, on a bigger stage just in terms of this card being a big numbered event at the Impact Arena. So I'm all for it. I think that this is super fun, and it's a good use of some of the guys that they've had come through Friday fights, I think, because those Friday fights cards are always so reliably entertaining that why not put a few of those matchups on one of these cards and just guarantee yourself that you're going to get some really fun fights on here. Bout number 3, which supposedly kicking off the kind of main portion of this card, will be the return of Masaki Noiri, who this is a massively important fight for Noiri. He, of course, has suffered consecutive losses since coming over to one championship as a big sign for them, a lot of people were excited about the idea of seeing him match up with some of these guys in the featherweight division. He is going to be staying in the featherweight kickboxing division. I know some people were speaking about him just not really having the size or physical prowess maybe that is needed for his style in this weight class. He has suffered consecutive decision losses to Sitachai and Lu Mengyang. The Sitachai one I kind of put down to Sitachai looked great in that fight. He's still a super high level competitor, and he just seemed to have a really, really effective not only game plan but just style in general to deal with the pressure of Noiri. But Lu Mengyang also looked really impressive against Noiri, and then it starts to become a conversation of, is it a fault of Noiri and not just Sitachai having a really good game plan and performance on that night? Not to take the performance and the win away from Sitachai, because I thought he did look great in that fight. He looked good against Shadow as well, even when he lost that fight. Sorry, not who am I thinking of? Yeah, no, it was Shadow, wasn't it? Yeah, that Friday Fights headliner that we got towards the end of last year. So a massive fight for Masaki Noiri, who will be taking on Shakir El Tekriti, who admittedly don't know a lot about. This will be his second fight in one championship, third fight, sorry. So we have seen him a few times. One win and one loss. That win over Bampara Kuyate, I think, has aged pretty well because I've been impressed by Bampara Kuyate, specifically his win over Luke Lisi, who, you know, I'm a big Luke Lisi fan. Who isn't a fan of the chef? And to see him put out Luke Lisi, you know, is obviously going to catch my attention. He then did go and suffer a TKO loss to Rungrawi, which I think, when I say that I don't know much about him, we've had one win over a good opponent in Kuyate and one loss against a probably better opponent in Rungrawi. And so now we kind of need to see, we know that he's kind of in this gap. We need to now know whether he is actually in this gap or whether, you know, that Kuyate win was maybe a step above what we need to expect from. I don't know. This is where we're going to find out. But then again, we kind of don't know this about Noiri as well. So both guys have a really good opportunity here to kind of push themselves up significantly, I think, in estimations. And, you know, as I said, Noiri coming over is a big signing. This is a huge fight for him in terms of his stock in one championship. Bout number 4 is a submission grappling contest. Fear not, striking fans, is the one and only submission grappling contest on this card. And it just so happens to feature one of the most legendary submission grapplers of all time in the returning Marcelo Garcia, who has not competed for over a decade at this point. I mean, I'm sure people out there who are, you know, not just jiu-jitsu fans, but MMA fans, I'm sure will know the name. Even striking fans, I feel like, will recognize the name Marcelo Garcia as just a, you know, well-known name in combat sports, a real master of his craft in combat sports. But yeah, has been inactive for quite some time. Is, you know, was planning a comeback. He now has that comeback. It will take place against Masakazu Imanari, an opponent that he has never faced before, which is quite interesting. I'm just, you know, the submission grappling contests, take them or leave them. They are not always particularly entertaining. And when I say not always, I say if you don't enjoy watching jiu-jitsu, then they are probably never entertaining. I get some interest out of them. But for me, this is less about being a fan or not of submission grappling. This is a guy that is a master of his craft coming back. And I didn't think I would probably ever get the opportunity to watch Marcelo Garcia compete without, you know, watching old matchups. And so I'm excited for this. It's cool to see Marcelo back, and I think it's a really big swoop from one championship to get his comeback here, because you can guarantee that if Marcelo Garcia was making his return to competition on the UFC Fight Pass Invitational or on CJI or even in a super fight at ADCC or something like that, you know that it would be a really big deal. And so I think this is a really good move for one championship to have Marcelo Garcia be a part of the fold. That adds some pedigree to what they're doing in the submission grappling world for sure. So yeah, I'm excited for this. Yeah, we'll leave that there. Bout number, what are we on? We are on bout number 5. It is a lightweight MMA contest between Maurice Abavi and Samat Mamedov. Could be Mamedov, so apologies if the pronunciation is slightly off there. Just pulling up both men's records, because to be honest, I think this is one of the fights, of all the fights on this card, this is one of the ones that's definitely gone under the radar the most. I would say the other one being Sinsama and Nauzet Trujillo, because that was added on, you know, quite short notice. So was this one as well? I can't remember. Maurice Abavi has had 3 fights in one championship. He suffered a debut loss to Halil Amir, who I've mentioned multiple times on this podcast, is a guy that I rate pretty highly, even if he is coming off of a couple of losses right now to some very tough guys. So no shame in that loss at all, and he has bounced back with 2 wins. He stopped Blake Cooper at One Fight Night 14 in Singapore and fought last May, where he beat Zhang Li Peng via unanimous decision. The interesting thing with Maurice Abavi is that he is only 25 and came into one championship undefeated. So still feel like the best is still to come from Maurice Abavi in terms of where his, you know, where his kind of potential caps out in this lightweight division. I still don't think we know the answer to that. So interested to see him stick around in one championship, because it does kind of feel like he could end up going on to become one of the top contenders in this division. I don't think he's quite there yet. But this will be another important step for him as he takes on the 26-year-old Samat Mamedov. He is finished. I'm just reading this off of the One Championship website because I know very little about this guy. I'm actually just going to look up his MMA record outside of One Championship. As you kind of could probably guess without doing this yourself, when you look at guys that One Championship tends to bring in, especially from Europe, they tend to be undefeated guys. He is 10-0 in his career at 26 years old. Only one decision on his record, and all of his finishes have come in the first round, with 6 of them being via submission. Most of them are rear naked chokes with one arm triangle in there. Fighting for Octagon, not the huge European promotion, Octagon, the other Octagon, which is based around. I mean, it's still European, but you know what I mean. There's the one with a K and there's one with a C. Hopefully, by that. I mean, the records of the opponents he's fought aren't particularly impressive. He does have a win over. He went 4-0 in his career against a 9-4 guy. That's a pretty good record on paper, although his last win was over a guy who was 42-20. What an insane record that is. But hey, like I said, we'll see. If Mamedov is able to come in here and get the win over a baby, then he's probably instantly, looking at a matchup against one of the top guys. And I think the baby could probably do the same. If he gets a win here, he's bounced back very, very well since that loss to Hilal Amir. This next fight, bout number 6, is one of the fights I am most looking forward to on this card. It is a flyweight Muay Thai contest between Johan Ghazali and Johan Estupinan. The battle of Johans, 2 incredibly dangerous guys. Just really interesting. Again, a little bit like Freddie Haggerty and Jordan Estupinan. Surprised to see one match this up together, because both these guys have been, pretty, heavily featured guys for the promotion, and clearly guys that they're pretty high on. 2 exciting, young strikers. I think the bigger interest here is in Ghazali, because we've had a lot more questions regarding Estupinan answered. I think that on his day, he is a dangerous guy for anybody, but he is quite wild and reckless at points. And we also know that he can dig deep to come through some incredible wars that he has been through. With Ghazali, his one loss in the promotion against Nguyen Tran Doi Nhat was when Nguyen was able to kind of soak up that pressure and didn't crumble underneath it. And whilst I don't expect Estupinan to do that, because he has proven, like I said, that he is ready for the chaos. It is an interesting question of, can he be chaotic and incredibly creative and dynamic when someone like Ghazali is stood in front of him, who is probably going to pressure him and throw with a lot of output as well. So it's a really, really interesting clash, I think. And great clash of styles. And I think that we're going to find out quite a lot about Ghazali in this one. And that is why I'm looking forward to it so much, to see him face a guy that is so dangerous, right? Because his other opponents, I don't think you could say that for. So, big test for him. Let's have a little reset here before we head into bout number 7. Sintomat taking on Trujillo. Who have we seen Trujillo since Liam Nolan? No, we haven't. That was February last year as well. So that was a big upset win for him, and I thought he looked good in that fight. So this is a big test for Sintomat, I think. Whilst like I said, it's been a while since we've seen Trujillo. The last few times that we saw Sintomat, he was defeated. I mean, that performance from Yusuf Asuk at One Fight Night 25 last year, I thought was very impressive. He looked good in that fight. And against Menshikov, he was winning the fight until he was knocked out, with like 90 seconds left on the clock or whatever. So big test for Sinsmut here, who is definitely in need of a rebound performance. I think that the strength of this card is reflected in how Joe Natwood is on this card, taking on Bamparo Kiyate, and yet I'm sure that there are a lot of striking fans that are excited for this, and yet it kind of does feel like it's fallen down the pecking order just because of how good this card is. Joe Natwood, of course, looking to bounce back from that loss to Superbon. That was a really big moment for Joe Natwood in his career, I think, losing that fight to Superbon in the way that he did. That being said, if he's able to go out there and stop Bamparo Kiyate in Muay Thai, then he's right back in that mix again. I've already spoken about Kiyate, but coming off of that knockout win over Luke Lisi in a great fight, has got a lot of momentum behind him right now. But Joe Natwood, like I said, never too far away from being in that mix, especially considering it doesn't feel like we have reached the end of his chapter with the champion Tawanchai, despite the fact that Tawanchai has beaten him twice. Of course, they were booked to face each other in a trilogy that didn't end up happening because of that Superbon loss. Bout number 9 is Sexan versus So Lin Oh. This is just another fun fight that I'm sure the fans are going to be super into. It'll be probably pretty crazy whilst it lasts. And I'm excited to see it. I'm always excited to watch Sexan, and I am even more excited to watch Sexan when they give him opponents that are going to trade with him, like Liam Harrison, like So Lin Oh. This should be a fun one. I'm going to switch over to the One Championship website here as we talk about the last 3 fights on this card, which are the 3 title fights, of course. Starting with, I would say, probably the one I'm most looking forward to on this card, and that is Nico Carrillo taking on Nabil Anan for the interim bantamweight Muay Thai World Championship. Of course, this was supposed to be Nico challenging Superlek until Superlek was injured. Nabil was supposed to be fighting Cameron Nabati on this card. They instead put him into this interim title fight here. I initially thought this one was really hard to call. I was leaning towards Nico, and I think I've kind of lent more and more towards Nico in the last kind of week or so leading up to this one. I think Nabil is great, and I think he is technically fantastic. I just worry that he, is still very young. He, of course, moved up from flyweight and has been on a great run at bantamweight, a really, really great run. Impressive performances for sure. But Nico is a guy that is often accused of being a weight bully, even though he consistently makes that bantamweight limit without any, really big, drama or controversial moments. He's just a huge guy, super powerful, and I think that might be the difference here. We've seen Nico get tested in his fights, particularly with Nongo and Simapet, and it doesn't matter because he only needs to land one big shot and he will find that finish. And I think this might be the case yet again. Whilst Nabil, I think, is great. I just don't know. I just feel like the physicality between them is such a big difference. Whilst Nabil is very, very good at using his range, I don't know how effective he's going to be at doing that against a guy that is so explosive and fast like Nico is. And as I've already said, it only takes one shot from the King of the North to end this fight. And I think that that's what makes the matchup with him and Superlex so interesting as well. I think that we will probably see these guys meet again further down the line, potentially upper weight class as well. And I think that might be a different story for Nabil at that point in his career. But I just think at this stage of them meeting, Nico might be just a little bit too physically dangerous for Nabil. But what a fight it is. And if someone wanted to make the argument of why Nabil would win, I would be, all ears to that as well. This is definitely not a fight that I am, 100% leaning towards Nico in. But what a great fight. So good. Good stay from One Championship, even if it did end up upsetting Nabati. So we'll see what happens there. And I expect Nabati to still be in this mix throughout the rest of the year, for sure. Whilst I can't say that I'm looking forward to this MMA fight as much as I was the main event of One Fight Night 27. I am very, very, very happy to have Fabricio Andrade back competing in MMA. He is one of my favorite fighters on this roster to watch as an MMA fan. One of the best MMA talents in one championship, I believe. And it's been nearly 2 years since we last saw him compete in MMA, which is, he obviously went and fought Haggerty in kickboxing and then had some injuries to deal with. So, part of his layoff, it can't be helped. But at the same time, I do wish we could have seen more of Wonder Boy, because that streak he was on at bantamweight, he just looked so good. Of course, that opens up some interesting questions here ahead of his rematch with Kwon Won-il, because on one hand, you could say, how good is Fabricio now? He's probably only going to continue to get better in terms of his skill set in the gym. But at the same time, he hasn't fought in MMA in 2 years. That's a long time to go without competing. I don't expect it to have a huge impact on Fabricio, just because his style is so efficient anyway. Of course, it could affect things like his timing and his ability to read the fight, but he was so good at that before that I think he'll pick that back up. It is one of his strongest skill sets. And whilst you could argue that that was down to his activity and things like that, I think that he is just naturally very good at that. And you could argue that will have only got better with all the time he will have spent training. Kwon Won-il, of course, was stopped in their first meeting in 2022 in the first round, but he has rebounded with 3 wins and 3 finishes. So if you're going to make the case for why a rematch should be put together, that is how you go and do it. You win 3 fights and you win them impressively. So certainly deserving of this opportunity, and I don't expect Fabricio to just go out there and stop him in the first round again, but I do expect Fabricio to come through this. Like I said, I think he's one of the best MMA fighters in one championship currently. He is one of their best champions, and yeah, I would expect him to come through here. But not to say that this isn't a fight that should have been booked. It certainly should have been. Even if we were all expecting, a different fight, but it's been a long time since we've seen Fabricio. So of course the shape of the bantamweight division has changed in that time. And finally, in the main event at the Impact Arena, 170, Friday, January 24th, it is Tawanchai, the one featherweight Muay Thai world champion, defending his title in a rematch with the one featherweight kickboxing world champion, Superbon. Their first fight at One Friday Fights 46 in December of 2023. Was super entertaining, really fun fight. What you would expect from 2 of the best, not only Thai strikers in the world, but 2 of the best strikers in the world. I didn't expect necessarily to see this rematch, so at this point. But after the performance that Superbon put on against Joe Nattawut, stopping him in the first round, showing a ruthlessness in Muay Thai that we haven't really seen from Superbon. Of course, he's got some great finishes under his belt in kickboxing, but even then, a lot of them have come from his kicks. He stopped Joe Nattawut with an elbow in the first round when they fought. And it was a super impressive performance, and I just didn't see it coming from Superbon. So I think definitely deserving of this shot. I just don't know. The Joe Nattawut win does open up some interesting conversations, right? Because clearly that was a side to his striking that we haven't seen before. He, of course, is fantastic in kickboxing, but I would say that his style doesn't translate quite as well to Muay Thai as it does kickboxing. But the Joe Nattawut win was kind of like a little tap on the shoulder to show you, this guy's still getting better in Muay Thai. He's already, incredibly impressive in kickboxing. It showed that there is still, room for evolution. He is not just kickboxing Superbon competing in a different rule set. It showed that there are improvements being made, I think. More versatile skill set in Muay Thai could end up going a long way for him in this fight. I still think that Tawanchai is the favorite here. Based on how the first fight went, it was an entertaining battle. It was back and forth at points, but I just think Tawanchai's skill set in Muay Thai is a little bit better. But that Joe Nattawut win definitely makes this interesting. So whilst I still would pick Chai to defend here, I expect it to be another close fight, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Superbon pull off the win. I would say I'm probably leaning towards Chai, maybe 65% towards Chai. And the first fight between them, I think I was leaning quite significantly towards Chai. I probably would have said 75%, maybe something like that. I'm just throwing ballpark figures out here without giving them much thought. So I think that makes sense, though. I think that's about right. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the main event. Do you think it's going to be a more competitive fight than their first fight, which was pretty competitive in itself? But it was a really, really fun fight. Of course, two of the biggest names in striking, two Thai icons at this point. Although Chai has, got some slack lately. So there's probably quite a lot of weight on his shoulders coming into this one as well. I think that's a factor is worth mentioning as well. After that win over Joe Nato at the Impact Arena, where he was booed after the fight, returning to the same place to take on a fighter as beloved as Superbon. Yeah, I think there's going to be some emotion for Chai in this one for sure. But I do think that will bring out hopefully the best in him. And so we will see how that ends up playing out. 170, as I said at the top, is a fantastic card, I think. The three title fights are three of the best title fights that one championship could have possibly put together, in my opinion. Even with the replacement to Nico and Superlek, I think Nico and Superlek is right up there with my favorite fights that one could possibly put together right now. And once Nico versus Nabil would probably also be on that list. So super excited for this card. Thank you for tuning in for this preview. Apologies that the one report's been a little bit different lately. We aren't kind of going through a whole list of topics. Like I said, wanted to get through this card. It is a big card. And as I've kind of hinted at a little bit over the last few episodes, there will be probably some changes happening to this channel in the coming weeks that I will let you know about as they happen. So we're kind of changing it up a little bit, taking things a little bit slower. But I appreciate you sticking with me, showing me support, all of that good stuff. Enjoy the fights. I will see you Monday to talk about them all from top to bottom or bottom to the top, whichever way we end up doing it. Until then, peace.